So, yeah, it's been a very long time since I've done a photo editing live stream, and I just felt like doing one because I got a new camera recently. I was very lucky to be sent a Ricoh GR3X. There we go. So I took it out for a spin over the weekend. Just did 2 shooting sessions so far, which were great. And I had a great time shooting with the camera. And I haven't had a chance to make a video about it, although you know one is definitely coming. There will be a video all about the GR3X for sure in the coming weeks. I'm just very slow to produce these things, and I, shoot them with Axel, and it just takes time. I'm not the fastest creator, but it'll get out there. But for now, I just thought a quick shortcut. Yeah, point the camera lower. Yeah, it's. I think I just need to sit up. That's what it is. So yeah, for now I just figured in lieu of a video where I'm actually out shooting with the GR3X, I thought I would just do a little photo editing session. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to edit my photos from the last 2 outings with this camera. And oh, it's Cody. Hey Cody, point the camera lower. Is it better? I think it's better. I just have to sit up and look at the name in the chat. So anyway, I went out with the camera, it was fun, and so I'm going to edit some of the photos. And the one that's on the screen right now, which I'm going to do first, is literally the first shot I took with it as I left my place. So kind of a weird one. Lower now. Okay, well, I can't. The thing is, the webcam kind of is really hard to adjust. Oh, okay. As always, I missed the sarcasm. I'm so focused on what I'm doing. Yeah, I can't make it that low. That's gonna be too low. This is the wrong. We'll have to switch to a different website for that. For going that low. But on YouTube, we're gonna have to keep it up here. All right. And yeah, it is awesome that I got the camera. It arrived in the mail on what? Friday night? Saturday? Saturday. Yeah. All right. So let's edit this one up. Not the most exciting photo. Just about the GR3 exactly like before. But you know what? I know it's an expensive proposition, but I think owning both the GR3 and the GR3X, I'll talk about that more later with an actual video where I'm out walking around shooting with it. I'll probably have both cameras on me for that, and it's something I can go into later. But I actually think, I know it's kind of, it's asking a lot in terms of price because you're going to pay, over $1,000 per camera. But it actually kind of makes sense to have both. And it's still cheaper than like a freaking Leica Q or something like that. And you're getting literally 2 cameras. So, so don't regret getting the GR3 regular one. The old one, I think it's a great camera. And the GR3X is literally the same camera, but with a 40mm lens. Honestly, now that I say it does sound kind of stupid to have the same thing. I mean, it would make more sense to have interchangeable system, right? And yeah, and so it's funny, I said yeah, but that's actually your screen name. It's yeah. I do prefer 40. Okay, hello Trinity. I do prefer 40 myself. Those of you who followed me over the years, my work and just me on YouTube, I love that little 40mm pancake that I have. And I was really looking forward to Nikon's 40mm pancake for the Z mount, so I'm excited for that. That should come out later this year. And so I do feel really at home on the GR3X. It just feels like perfect. I've always loved the GR, but it always felt a little bit, less natural to me than the 40. And by the way, there's no profile, so like I can tell that this is like a little bit barrel distorted or pincushion distorted, but there's no profile in Adobe yet because this camera is technically not really even out yet. I think it's coming out officially in a couple of days, so I got it just a little bit early. Let's see here. We'll try to straighten this one just a little bit there. Yeah, that looks better. Sorry guys, I'm going to be slow to read the chat because if I just read the chat, I'm not going to edit anything, and I want to get through more photos because I know this one's not the coolest photo out here. Okay, this one's done. It's just done. I don't need to perfect them on stream. I'll probably go back later and make improvements. Let's just keep going. All right, let me scroll through the chat here. Yeah, everything I've seen and read, no reason to upgrade from a GR3. Yeah, I mean, if you don't care about 40mm and you like 28 or the 28mm equivalent FOV, stick to the. It's not an upgrade because it's a side grade. It's literally the same camera but with a different lens. So, you know, I don't think you should really upgrade. But if you do have the money's not an issue, and you love the GR3, classic, and you want a GR with a longer lens, splurge and just get both. Or if you prefer longer lenses, get the longer one. Which, like, for me, I think if I was buying one today and I didn't have either, I would probably go for the 40. Especially since I have a GR2 as well, which is 28. So yeah. For travel, having two girls. Yeah, exactly. For travel, that's what I was thinking. Like, it's still less shit to carry around to have two GR3s than like a Nikon Z6 with two lenses. I mean, it's all good. I mean, as you guys all know from watching me over the years now, I'm very camera inclusive. I think they're all great. But yeah, that is a travel solution I've considered. Like, if I just bring two GRs, it's awesome. It's like super light. But hey, you got a GR3 for 20% off. That's a good deal because the X is not going to be 20% off. So, firmware updates. Oh, okay. See, I wasn't aware about the firmware updates. Can always crop. I forgot to say hello. Hello, Jigarati. How many people are watching? We got 30 people. Nice. I am using. So to answer the question, what editing app am I using? I'm using Adobe Camera Raw. So this is basically like Lightroom Ultra Light, where if you just open up raw photos in Photoshop directly or like from Bridge. So I'll open it up in a second again. You'll see what I'm doing when I get to the next photo. This one's pretty good. I feel like I can definitely spend some more time on this one, getting this guy to pop a little bit more. And again, like with the 40 here, it was, with the 28, this would have been a very cluttered photo. It's already kind of busy, but there would have been a lot more going on the edges of this photo because it's this busy reflection kind of thing. Let's fix these blues a little bit. I don't like this subtle change to the blues. Yeah, that might just be my monitor. I don't know. I find myself always not liking these blues, regardless of which camera I'm using. So maybe it's just me. Okay, but it could also just be Adobe's profile. All right, that one's good enough. What else is going on here? Yeah, it's funny because way back in the day when I was first buying my GR2, I was like balancing it with the X100 or comparing it. I was like, should I get the X100? I think it was the F at the time, was the latest one. And it's like GR2, X100. And it just came down to that, like, I can fit a GR in my pocket comfortably and it feels normal. Strictly speaking, I think an X100 you can put in a pocket, but I tried it at the store and it probably looked like I was stealing it. But I tried it and it felt like a lot in my pocket, so that was ultimately the decision for me. And yes, the two lenses in the Nikon can be 24-70, 70-200, but that's a lot of stuff to carry, as I know because I own those lenses and I carry that sometimes, and it's fine. It's cool. I don't mind carrying it, but it is also often when I travel, I will just bring the GR. Like, that's one of my go-to travel choices. If I'm taking a really big trip and then I'm going to hit a whole bunch of cities and I'm shooting at night a lot, I usually take the Nikon. But when I go to like a Okinawa beach area for a week, I bring just the Ricoh. I don't bother bringing the Nikon because it's just, I want to relax, I want to feel light. That's what Ricky is for. And so yeah, as many people have said, it's Camera Raw. So I'm using Bridge, Adobe Bridge, to look at the photos, and then I'm right clicking, opening Camera Raw, and then I get this thing which is basically like Lightroom Light. All right, let's keep going here. So this was a cool little scene, and again, everything I'm editing here, like this shot right here, this is very much a 40mm shot. Like, I could have done this with the 28, but there would have been a lot more stuff on the sides. There would be junk out here, and I don't know if it would have been more cluttered or not. So I really like the 40mm focal length. I think it's kind of, for me, the perfect street photography focal length, just right. So when I heard that they're coming out with one, I was like, wow, that's perfect. Like, they didn't go with 35 or 50, they went with 40. Nice, very slick. Perfect decision. quickly to finish this one out. Again, I'll probably go back through these later. Last time I did this stream, I was being really thorough and editing like as thoroughly as I usually do, and I realized it didn't maybe make for a good stream because I was very focused on the photos. I'll just kind of go through them quickly, give them quick once-overs. I like here how, you know, what's funny is I was trying to shoot this guy and have the reflection here of him, and just as I was lining up my shot, this other dude rolled up and stopped there, and that kind of annoyed me. I was like, oh man, I missed this shot. And I realized it's a little bit surreal in an interesting way, so it kind of works. All right. Hello, Kaibo. Okay, yeah, I figured a bunch. They announced it so like just suddenly with no real hints. It just came out of nowhere, and I figured tons of people would have been disappointed that they just bought a GR3 or something, and now the X came out. And yeah, it is crazy late. It's 2 in the morning, but you know what? I'm a night person. Yeah, it's 2:02. I stay up late. Not a big deal. I'll probably stream for about 30-40 minutes, maybe an hour, and then I'll go to sleep. Yeah, still rocking GR2. Yeah, I mean, I still have mine as well. What is a good setting for night to make the light pop in terms of what, like the editing? So some of the later photos that I'm gonna edit today, if I get to them, I think I'll get to them, are night photos. Here's one it's not quite night. It was like a early dusk, but this is almost like, it looks like a night photo, right? So I don't know what I do. Let's see what I do to make the light pop. So one thing I do is I often make the highlights go really far down. So it's kind of, I know it's probably a little small because I'm got the very big screen and the resolution is what it is. But I'm putting the highlights on -80 because if you don't, you see it washes out the colors. Like if I go +80, you see it's really washed out. So I go -80 on the highlights, which brings back the brightest brights a bit, and it makes the colors therefore a little bit more vivid. Not fully bright. And then I'll usually bring the whites up around 20 just to make sure that I have a white point. Like I don't want to see this. Well, it's actually not even quite here. But you see how like this white is actually gray? That might be okay because then maybe that was gray. But when, for example, the inside of a highlight, like if nothing is pure white in the photo, it doesn't look good to me. So I always look at my histogram and I want some part of the histogram touching the right edge. Same thing on the black side, although that's less common of a problem. You know, I don't like this like washed out look. Some people like it. That's less bad, but I'm not a fan. I usually go a little bit minus. Play with the clarity a bit. So usually I go a little bit down in the clarity, which gives, you know, the highlighted areas a bit of a glow, which can look good. And then I love the dehaze. I usually go plus, maybe +20. Not always, but a bit. And then, you know, vibrance up. So I got usually I go up to like 40, 30, 40, which sounds like a lot. And then I'll usually do saturation down just to kind of, you know, like if the saturation is too high, you see, again, it's kind of like highlights, but for color, right? Where if I go minus, you see, I get some detail back. Well, that's -50, that's way too much, but -10, I get some detail back in the brightest colors. So like in the reds here, you see I'm getting more detail as I bring the saturation down. So you should go like -10 or -5 to kind of counteract the vibrance. And like that would be like basically it's a done photo. So that's basically what I would do for a night photo to make stuff pop. Let's see here. And yeah, somebody said here to go with tungsten white balance. Yeah, I agree. I think that also helps. I don't usually mess with the white balance in the camera. I just do it all in post, which is the next thing. So here, like tungsten would just basically be making the temperature go down to like 4,000 Kelvin. For this photo, I think it needs that. I think 5,000 is going to look good. Just a little bit cooler. And then I usually, yeah, that's a little too purple for the tint as well. I play around with it and just find something that looks aesthetically pleasing to me. That makes the colors pop. I have a video on the channel, which I'm sure you've seen. It's about how I get my colors, and that's where I talk about like why I do the things that I do in detail. All right. And then usually I kind of bring up the curves a little bit like that. Yeah, it looks alright. Not an exciting photo, but yeah, it's okay. Alright. Let's see. What's next here? Oh yeah, here we go. This is going to be a good scene. Nice dusky, you know, the iconic neon at Yodobashi camera. think my favorite one was this one, because this guy walked in my shot, but he kind of created this little silhouette effect. In this case, I'm going to bring up exposure a bit. And again, see going minus on the highlights is cool. Bringing stuff up. Maybe a little bit of that. There we go. So clarity, again, a little bit down, behave a little bit up, vibrance up, saturation down. Pretty straightforward. And here, this is a good example of where, maybe if it was even a little bit later, because it's still not exactly nighttime, where the tungsten would really work. Because if I go down to like 4500, then also less purple, and let's make it like minus 16 for the tint. That's a little too much. Minus 10 should be enough. By going to such a low or cool color temperature, the reds pop. Okay, but I think it's a little too much, so I'm not going to go that low. I think 5000 again is a little more natural. Then I won't have to do the green quite as much. Yeah. I'm a big fan of this slider. So on the in the calibration section, which I think in Lightroom is the exact same thing, it's calibration. The green primary, I really like going to the right. It creates these like nice reds, sort of, and cleans up the blues a little bit. And I usually hit it up to about 40. A lot of people are big fans of the positive film simulation on the GR2. They kind of changed it on the GR3 a little bit, and I like the 2.1 a little more, but it doesn't matter. I usually had it set on my GR2. I had it set to positive, but when you open the RAW, it ignores that because I don't shoot in JPEG. But I found that by doing this, the green primary to the right, like plus 40, 50, it sort of emulated that look. So that's what I did. And then sometimes I'll do blue primary minus, which, let's make it really extreme. It does that, where it gets like this teal and kind of more, I don't know what to call that color, but like a violet-ish, peachish sort of reds. And it can look really heavy-handed, so I usually don't do it. But like in this photo, I might do it just a touch, just minus 5. Very subtle. Basically, can't even tell I did it. Alright. So this set is done. This one's a little underexposed, so I'm gonna bring it up. For this shot, I might straighten the, you know, like do like a tilt shift to clean it up. Straighten the perspective. There we go. And that looks more impressive, I think. Maybe not. We'll see. We'll compare in a sec. Just making it, you know, as accurate as I can. And then let's see the difference. Yeah, I like that, except that the word, the ka from camera is getting cut off. Let's see if I can slide that down a little bit. There we go. That's better. Minus 2.5, just make sure. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. And then also, somebody asked me, like, would you do this in the recent Q&A? Somebody was saying, like, is changing the perspective like this, is this cheating? And I said, it kind of is, but I mean, it depends on you. You make your own rules, right? If you want to cheat, you can cheat. And so I don't cheat for every photo, but for a photo like this, it just feels right. And Dimitri, will this stream be available later? Well, yeah, I would like to make it available, but I find that YouTube punishes you for making streams available, as I learned. Because the stream, when I'm done, is going to be like over an hour at least, probably. I mean, I'm not sure, but it'll be long. And what's going to happen is if I post it as a regular video, most people are not going to sit through it. Most people are not going to sit through it. And which is fair enough. Why should they? Because it's not live anymore. It's just, you know, it's unlikely. And even now, I'm sure some people are going to tune out. Some people are going to come back. You know, I can already see that we have less viewers now than we did 10 minutes ago. And that's fine, because it's just a stream for fun. But if I post it and then leave it up, then YouTube's going to say, whoa, no one's watching this video. This channel sucks. And now I'm going to get less views overall. So unfortunately, I don't plan on leaving it up once it's done. So I'm sure that some of you guys don't have time and the timing sucks and whatever, but yeah, that's the cold reality of YouTube. Yeah, exactly, Trinity, that's right. Whatever makes the photo feel right. I mean, you know, you just got to develop your own taste and just do what what works. I mean, it's an art form, right? But it's good to have rules for yourself. So like I try not to, if I'm doing a photo that to me is more of a documentary photo, I'm trying to really document reality, then I will be as light in my edit as possible, right? While still bringing out the beauty of the photo. But if it's like a city scene like that, where I just want to make it look exciting and cool and impressive, yeah, I don't mind being a little bit more, heavy-handed in my approach. Okay, let's see here. What else? Did I miss anything else? And yeah, that blue effect exactly is like the classic like movie poster thing with that orange teal kind of thing. Part of that effect is making the blues more like that, I think. And thank you. I'm one of the most gentlemanly street photographers. You know, I try to be really gentlemanly when I present myself in public, but people who know me really well know I can be a bit of a dick sometimes. But I do try to be nice on the street to other people that I come across, because I don't want people to hate street photographers, because it's, you know, some people hate it, and like it's just, you know, you want to leave a nice impression with people, right? If you photograph them or if you encounter them on the street, because they're going to remember that, and then the next time somebody else might want to take their photo, they're going to remember, hey, those street photographers are jerks with their little stupid little Ricoh cameras, and they're going to get angry at that person more easily. So I try to just keep a positive atmosphere. That's my philosophy on that. I kind of learned that as well as just being a foreigner in Japan. Like when I first came here, you know, sometimes me and my buddies would drink on the street, and you know, we'd be dumb and rowdy and stuff. But I learned after after a while, I don't know how many years, but eventually I realized that's very childish, and also I kind of felt like a little bit like a duty to, as a outsider in the country, to like leave a good impression, so that people in Japan don't say, oh yeah, you see that all the foreigners are just drunk idiots. There you go. You see, there's another one. I try to make a positive impact, so that maybe they have to say, hey, you know, people who, you know, the expats are not all just a bunch of assholes, you know. So yeah, I think it's a issue of diplomacy in a sense. All right, let's see here. Let's make this one a little warmer, so that the sky is as gray as it was, in fact, in reality. And honestly, do we need vibrance on this one? I don't think so, because I want it to be gray, because it was gray. It was a very gray and overcast kind of day, and I think it works for this scene. Let's see if we need to adjust the colors a bit here, but no, really the colors are just what they are, and it's fine. And what I will do is crop it a bit, because I don't like those little antennas peeking in. And then also it's kind of more centered this way. But maybe this one's better anyway. And then I was wondering, maybe we should do 16:9. Just kind of, I don't know. This obviously was quick. I didn't have a lot of time to get this scene, because these birds were flying along, and I just quickly was like, oh, that's cool, let's shoot it. So the framing is not great, but I kind of just like the moment. What are these birds? Are they crows? Yeah, they look like crows. All right, next shot. Yeah, if only the metal. So yeah, I'm looking at the chat from like 2 photos ago. But yeah, I was thinking when I was doing that sewer grate with the neon sign and put the camera really low, I was thinking like, yeah, it would be nice if it was raining, but it wasn't raining, so you know, I didn't get it. But whatever, next time. Let's see. So in general, so to answer Hawaiian C's question here about the Ricoh and capturing the colors, I mean, I like the colors from the Ricoh. I mean, you know, I do like them a bit more from my Nikon, but that's kind of goes without saying. It's a bigger sensor, it's a more expensive camera, it's gonna have probably better color reproduction. But honestly, it doesn't matter. And in fact, I'm glad you asked that, because there was something I was going to talk about eventually in this video, or maybe in the video where I'm actually shooting with the Ricoh on the street. But to me, like, there's such a big, you know, so much fuss done about the colors of the Fuji has great colors, and the whatever. You know, Nikon this and Sony, and then people like bash, there's no good color science. You know what, there are differences, but really it doesn't matter, because if you know how to edit these photos, if you get good at editing, you can make any photo look like anything you want. So yes, if you really want them to look perfect from the camera, that's your shooting style, that's your creative style. You don't want to mess around, you know, in Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom like I am right now. I totally respect that. And in that case, you're going to be very sensitive to the differences between the different cameras, okay? But for me, it's not that important, so I don't pay that much attention to it. And I just edit how I please. And when I edit, I don't see a ton of differences between, for example, the GR and even my Nikon Z6. Between the 2 and the 3, there were some subtle differences, I suppose, the GR2, GR3, but again, it's nothing major that I noticed in terms of how I edit the photos and how the photos ultimately look. However, what does matter to me is, and I don't know if this is really a technical term or not, but like what I like to think of as like color latitude or color depth. Like how much can I push and pull these colors in the editor as I am now? Like how much, what can I do and still retain, you know, solid colors where you don't get like weird gradations, you know, where colors don't separate in strange ways, which as you can see, you know, like for example, clouds are a great example of that, because if you start pushing and pulling stuff, you can see. So this is after the edit. I'm zooming this in way too much. Let's go to reset to default. So as you can see, there's a very subtle gradation in this cloud as it is straight from the camera. It's mostly gray. But once I started messing with things with contrast and vibrance and, you know, changing the white balance, it looks like this. And you can see that there is some slight subtle breakdown of the colors. It's subtle, but you can see how like, I don't know how well this is coming across on the stream with compression, but there's like pink here and blues here. And I'm really zooming in, so this really not a problem. Looks nice. It's not a bad thing. But on you know, older sensors and certain cameras or whatever, and also on great cameras and good sensors but at very high ISOs, these kind of color artifacts get stronger. And that's what I'm mainly watching out for. That's what I really care about. I don't really care about how the different colors are on this camera, that camera, because that can be changed. What I care about is, do the colors stay cohesive after you start playing with them. And GR3 does great for a, you know, $1,000 camera with an APS-C sensor. I think it has fantastic colors, and what you can do with them in post. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. And speaking of the colors here, I made that way too purple. See with this shadow tint here. I can see the chat moving out of the corner of my eye. I'm going to look at it in just a sec. By the way, this is where I was happy to have the 40, because I can get that moon in the plane a little bit better than on the 28 on the regular GR3. And in fact, I'm going to crop this a bit because I don't like these buildings coming in at the top there, you know, in the top left, top right corner. And honestly, I think it'll look better. I just crop it a bit. Let's see here. I think cropping it to here would be nice. Yeah. Anyway, not a great photo. It's kind of cool. Let's see if I can apply the same edit to this next one. Nah, we'll go from scratch. But first, I'll take a look at the chat here a little bit. Yeah. Let me see here. Oh, lots of chatting. Yeah, I mean, so Trinity, you mentioned you've been yelled at. I've been yelled at. I've been yelled at. It doesn't happen often, but I've been yelled at. And it's not pleasant. It doesn't feel good to get yelled at. But I always just try to remind myself that, okay, that person, you know, they didn't like it. Maybe they were having an extra bad day. Or maybe they had a bad experience with somebody who was an asshole about it sometime previously, which is why I try to be nice, because I want to not, you know, make someone have a bad experience and then they're going to pass on that negative energy to the next photographer. But what I try to keep in my mind is that I don't believe that I'm doing anything wrong by doing street photography. So if somebody yells at me, I really try not to take it personally, although in the moment I usually do. I do get hurt by it. I'm sort of like, man, why is that guy so rude? I get a little bit defensive in my own head. But then I quickly forget about it and just remember, look, I'm out here, I'm creating art, and I'm not hurting anybody by taking the photo. And if people get pissed, that's on them. And that doesn't say anything about what I'm doing actually. So keep a positive attitude about it. And yeah, there is definitely a culture of shoving cameras into people's faces, and I'm not that kind of photographer. And I used to be more close, and I find that these days I work farther from people than I used to. I'm much more about showing people as part of the environment rather than just like their face. There's other photographers that do that really well, like Tatsuo Suzuki is a really famous example, but it's just not a direction I'm going these days for whatever. Yeah. And yeah, so like shooting with an 85, as Kaibo mentions. Yeah, exactly. You get to be a little bit farther away, and you know, sure, some people might say, well, that's kind of voyeuristic, but on the other hand, maybe it's good because it allows you to see the natural behavior, as somebody else pointed out. When you get close, people react, and then are you getting their real reaction? You know, you're kind of affecting the scene. I like to think of street photography, and I've made this analogy before, as a kind of wildlife photography. I try to think of myself as like an alien on planet Earth, and you know, I'm just observing the wildlife, the native indigenous life forms of the planet. If I go to, you know, well, I mean, if I'm just on safari, some tourists, people probably don't care if the lion reacts to their presence or not. But if you're like a you know, a naturalist, right, like a David Attenborough kind of person, right, biologist, and you want to photograph or video, you know, wild animals, you want to do it in a way where they are not disturbed by your presence at all, right? You want to see the real natural behaviors of those creatures, right? That's kind of how I think about street photography. I don't like to disturb the scene. Sometimes it happens that I do, you know, and then as we say in Japanese, shoganai, which means oh well, can't be helped. But I try not to. Now see in this photo, see here's an example of like colors breaking out a bit. You see how this red is starting to turn like kind of magenta? And that could be because I pushed and pulled it too far. It could be because that's an inherent, you know, quality of the GR sensor. I don't really know, and I don't really care because I can fix it with a simple slider. I just slide this red primary to the right. I could also go to the HSL panel and do it over here. You see I can just change this one thing. So like those little things like, oh, like it's a little too yellow tinted on the Nikon, which is something I've heard. And I've also personally felt that like Canon sensors, at least this is like way back in the day, like a little bit on the cool side. Who cares? Because you can just change that. It's not a big deal. You know, how it comes out from the camera is not important. Anyway, this photo's pretty cool. I quite liked it. I think actually the last one here was better when I kind of recomposed a little bit. Maybe a little bit too much on this purple tint. Yeah, let's go to 4 and do that for all of them. There we go. Alright, not bad. Let's move on. What else are people saying here? Yeah, and asking is also good, and I think there's nothing wrong with asking. I don't ask because I don't, as I said, I don't want to affect people, but if that's the way you want to do street, I think there's nothing incorrect about that. I think asking is great. Michael, yes, I'm using Adobe Camera Raw because it's just lighter than Lightroom for me. It's hard but fun. You got seconds to think about your shots, yeah. What Ricoh videos are you working on next on their channel? Tim, I don't know yet because they just sent me this camera and we gotta get it. We gotta have a meeting and figure out what they want. I have a lot of ideas. I'm not gonna spoil them because I don't know what they're gonna go with. So we'll see. But whatever they don't go with, like if they, you know, we come up with some ideas that, if I had some ideas that they don't want or whatever, we ended up not going that way, I'll probably use those ideas for our channel on iExplore. So I know that over the past few months on the iExplore channel, it's been like just Nikon, 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 because I've been doing a lot of, you know, videos for the Ricoh channel. So it's like it kind of like I split it that way. But I want to do more Ricoh content on our channel, and in fact, I was going to do a video about the GR3 this week, and then they were like, "Hey, do you want the X?" I was like, "Sure." So that'll be, you know, I'm gonna switch it. Instead of doing the regular 3, I'll use the GR3X in the video that I want to do. I want to go to an area called Sugamo, which is this kind of retro sort of area on the north part of Tokyo, and it's commonly nicknamed the, well, I'm spoiling what I'll say it in the video again later, but it's nicknamed the Obachan Harajuku, which means like Harajuku for grannies, Harajuku being the kind of fashion district in Tokyo, one of them, for young people, right? And so it's called that because I guess grannies go and shop there. I don't know. I think it's just kind of a stupid nickname, but it's a cool area, and we'll go check it out. And I'll have the GR3X for that shoot. Yeah, let's see what else here. James, you're right. I can unlist the video and then add it to a playlist just for. So okay, you know what? Thanks for reminding me. That's what I was gonna do. I was thinking about that, but I forgot because I do these live streams so rarely. What I could do is make it members only, which we don't have a lot of members on the channel. Or I could unlist it and then share the link. Maybe put that on Patreon. Maybe I'll put it on Patreon without, you know, not just for Patreon supporters, just for everybody, just to be nice. But yeah, you're right. I could do an unlisted link. You're right. And then I assume YouTube's not going to penalize me for that. But even if I do that, I'm not going to leave it up forever. I might make an unlisted link and then share that, like maybe also on my Instagram in a story, so that like people can catch up this week and watch the stream if they think it's interesting. Although I don't know how interesting me just rambling about random stuff is, but I hope it is. But I will definitely not leave it up forever because I think it's just, yeah, I don't know. I think even if it's unlisted, YouTube might not appreciate if people don't watch the video all the way through. So here was a scene where I totally chickened out and I should have just gotten a little bit closer because I didn't quite line up this dude. So this dude's getting a beard cut back there at this fancy place called Wolfman, which is a famous place to get a beard cut. I should probably go there, but I don't want to spend like $100 to get my beard trimmed. And I tried to line up the guy in there with the logo, which was pretty cool. But anyway, even though I didn't get quite close enough, the fact that I had the 40 as opposed to the 28 was nice. So I can crop this a bit, but it was dark, and you know I didn't really take the time to lower my shutter speed. This is 1/250, so it ended up being 2500 ISO. So it's like kind of noisy, as you can see. And that's when, as I said, once the ISO is a bit high, and then you start pushing and pulling the colors around, that's when things can get a little bit nasty. But you know, it's looking fine. It's not an issue, I think, at 2500 still. You know, so just gotta get it just right. Let's see here. Yeah. All right. There's no profile for the correction. It's like my habit to just see how the lens profile corrects it, and it's not necessary right now. Yeah, I think this shot is tricky for the shadows because I want the shadows to be, yeah, a little bit darker, but not quite too dark. This is where probably I should just use the curves, but I'm kind of stubborn. I like using the sliders a little more because the curve can have like unintended consequences higher up the curve there. Definitely straighten it though, and then definitely crop off the top. So let's make this 16:9 and straighten it a little bit more. Okay, yeah, it's not bad. Maybe black and white. Let's just try monochrome. I almost never do that, but I think it might work better for this shot. Let's see, before I go on, what else are people saying here? I think let's see here. Ooh. Yeah, it's exactly. I'm looking for color separation. I was talking about colors and stuff, but yeah, color noise reduction is part of what I was saying. So I'm like way behind in the chat here, but yeah, I keep it on 25 as a default, so I could increase color noise reduction, but I find it doesn't necessarily fix the things that I was talking about. It fixes slightly different things. Like here, you see when let's zoom all the way in, and this random effect, and it's not, again, this is not important. I'm just illustrating what I'm talking about. This doesn't matter to me in a photo, but you see you see this artifact here, like this greenish purplish weird stuff going on. You turn on the color noise reduction higher, and that goes away more, right? I don't know, I could go back to that cloud thing, but I don't know if it would remove that because that wasn't quite noise. It was like splotches of color. Anyway, but before I go on from this photo, I want to try color grading because I haven't, like, specifically the color grading section, because I think this photo could use some. So I kind of don't like the balance. So I want the shadows actually a little warmer and the midtones a little cooler. You know, people ask me like if I have presets, but I don't, because I just kind of have like memorized go-to positions on things. I just kind of know what I like. And then the highlights should be really warm here, but also a little bit brighter. That's probably too warm. Maybe blend them a little bit more. Well, let's try really cool highlights. See how that looks. I find that's what's missing in this photo to me, is the highlights just look kind of bland. Like the inside of the shot doesn't really speak to me. if it's corny as that sounds, it's just kind of, it's just sort of there. Like, but then when I give it color, it looks like I gave it color. It doesn't look right. So anyway, it is what it is. That's the photo. If it doesn't look good, it doesn't look good. I don't spend too much time trying to like polish a turd, as it were. Like if a photo just doesn't look good after a couple of minutes of editing, I'm not gonna spend hours trying to get it to look good. Like it's just, it is what it is, and I just abandon it. It's like, it's okay. I'll just go shoot another photo somewhere else in different light, you know. But for now, yeah, these are just okay. All right. See here. Yeah, Jagarardi, I know what you're talking about, and I've done that before. Sometimes, yeah, I do that. I just kind of keep pointing it that way, like I'm shooting something else. I mean, honestly, I try not to do those kind of things, though. I want to be open about it, but I'll admit, like everyone is self-conscious and has, me included, and I have like sometimes feel a little bit you know, like unconfident or whatever, or you know, like vulnerable, I guess, like, you know what I mean, seeing people see me taking the phone, like, oh my god, it's gonna happen, and then in the moment I do like stuff like that. But I generally try to just make eye contact with people, smile at them, and let them know, just with non-verbal cues, they're like, yep, I am here, I am taking your photo, and if you want to say something, because I'm here. I'm not like, you know, trying to run away or pretend I'm doing something else or whatever. But yeah, guilty. I've done that too, for sure. Sometimes it just feels right. It's quite like, I love shooting like a, you know, a blurry silhouette through a piece of glass like this. It's pretty cool. And this is definitely why I probably won't actually post these till these profile corrections come out. I don't usually care so much about barrel distortion, but you can tell here that like this bit of wall on the right here is curved, the other one's curved. I would really like to correct that. I think that will make this photo look better, because that kind of thing is distracting to me. I find it takes away. So I guess that's my philosophy, is if it takes away from the photo, if those kinds of what do you call it? If those kind of distortions or artifacts or mistakes in a photo, like optical issues like that, if they take away from the photo or they are distracting, then I will try to correct them. That's how I think about it. Hello, Kevin. Greetings. Thanks for encouraging likes, Trinity. I appreciate it. Let's see what else. Oh, still Brazzy. Awesome. Yeah. Good to see you on here. And yes, the 40, I agree. And we've talked about that before. And yeah, the 28 is great, but I think especially for what you do, I think a 40 can be good to give you a little bit more reach if you can't always get that close to the action. Cool that you're studying Japanese, Trinity. That's awesome. If you don't know already, I highly recommend an app called Wanikani for studying kanji. I'm not affiliated with them, but I'm always raving about it, and I'm always recommending them to people because I think that's like the best kanji study app out there. I mean, at least for me, I've been using it for years. I'm on like level 40 of this app, and I went from knowing basically no kanji because I was lazy to study them, you know, with pen and paper, to knowing, you know, a couple of hundred, over 1,000 I think now. But what do you call it? But only reading. You don't study writing on this. If you want to study writing, you gotta do that separately. And since I'm more focused on just being able to read, then, you know. And here's an example of, you see, look at these blues up here. You see how this was obviously did not look like this. This just looked like solid blue in real life. And you see the camera, the sensor, the GR3 in this case, is not picking this up well. Or it just might be this color profile, because the official, you know, like Adobe hasn't released anything for the GR3X yet. The naming here looks a little, usually it says Adobe color here when I'm using the regular GR3. So it might just be that this profile is wrong and it's misinterpreting this, because that happens with my Nikon all the time, where if I open it, the blues look all messed up, like especially neons like this, and then I change it to the Nikon profile and it looks fine. So, but that's an example of where I think, you know, like what I really care about is like, do colors break down in extreme cases? And in this case, it's before I even edited the photo, is already a bit broken down. So I'm just gonna crop that out because it doesn't look good, and that's the solution there. I'm also gonna crop out a bit of that stuff on the ground. There we go. And yeah, in this case, my green trick, making the greens like a little bit more warm, doesn't look good at all. It just looks a little bit too warm. But the other way also doesn't look good, so I'm just not going to touch it. This is a tricky photo. This is honestly where I would probably maybe mess with the HSL a little bit to kind of adjust particular colors, because there's a lot going on here. And I think it's hard to do it all at once. I think mainly I just got to fix these purples. I don't know, so there's actually not a lot of purples in this. Or the blues, I should say. Yeah, it's this thing. So yeah, this is like too warm for me down here on the asphalt, so I'm going to make these magentas a little bit more purplish, I guess. And you see that looks fine, but on some cameras that might break down. This might just start to look kind of weird, and that's what I care about when it comes about colors in a particular camera. Alright, let's see if I can adjust this a little bit more. Yeah, a little cooler is better. Alright, I think that one's done. Let's see. What else? How's the new firmware update? Yeah, I haven't even realized there is a firmware update. That's how I'm so like, for the guy who's on YouTube, the expert of the gear, sometimes I miss like basic stuff like that. I'm going to look into the firmware updates. I didn't know that there was a firmware update for the GR3, the regular one, and I guess the X has a different firmware, so I'm going to look into that, make sure everything's updated. Yeah. Let's see, what focus mode do I prefer? I mean, they all work, but on the GRs, I just keep it in the center. On the GR2, I use the pinpoint autofocus. On the 3s, I've been using the select AF, but I think I'm gonna on the 40 at least. I want to switch to the pinpoint because sometimes I'm shooting stuff a bit far and I want a smaller focus point. I got another folder. So these are from today's photos. Literally took them a few hours ago. Young So, no problem. Thank you so much for watching all my content. I appreciate it. Hi, Jeff. And so yeah, do I use manual focus, autofocus, or snap? So on the GR, like I said, I use auto. I use snap regularly, so I keep it, on the, the FN button here on the back. If you press, when I press that enables snap focus. So I use full press snap. That's always available, but I also sometimes just turn on snap and use it. And then on my Nikon, I use manual regularly. On the GRs, I do once in a while too, if like a situation really requires manual, but generally I don't, just because of how you access it. You have to push a button on the side, and then I use the dial on top. This is kind of a little bit clunky. There's no manual focus ring, which would be really cool if they added it, but I'm sure that would make the camera bigger, more expensive, whatever, so it's fine that they don't have it. It's not really necessary. And yeah, I guess I'm a werewolf for staying up late, but yeah, I just love it. I'm out all night. Yeah, please bring Chica back to the videos. I would love to. It's just really hard to find time for her to be. But you know what? We have 2 GRs now. I have 2 GRs, so that might be a fun video. Just bring her along, and she could use one, I'll use the other one, and we'll walk around and shoot stuff. Yeah. Jakość jest świetna, kolory też. Dzięki. Ostrość też super. Yeah, so in Polish here, somebody said the quality and the colors are great, and the sharpness. And I agree. And especially the sharpness, I'm always impressed. I mean, these are so sharp on this 40mm lens. This is on f2.8. And it's just, zoom to, let's go 300%. I mean, I know I'm over zooming it now, but you can, it's obviously getting stretched in terms of the pixel quality is getting stretched, but still it's sharp. Like there's no, coma or glow or anything like that. Even in the corners. I mean, you start to get some vignetting, but damn, that's sharp. So yeah, the 40mm lens is just as sharp as the 28, although it's not a 40, guys, it's a 26.1, right? So let's be precise here. But yes, the Ricoh's lens is fantastically sharp. I absolutely love it. You know, I'm not like a stickler for sharpness. Sometimes I used to use like old retro lenses that were not fully sharp, and it's not a big deal. But it is nice to have. Like if it's fully sharp, it's just good. It's like something you don't have to think about so much. Alright, let's see. Do I want to make this one extra cool? And then more green here. I think I made a mistake again with the vibrance here. I don't think I need more vibrance. I think I need less vibrance. I think this photo should be a little bit desaturated. But I do also think it should be warm. 5700. Yeah. There we go, looking good. A little bit warmer greens here. I want to give it a kind of a retro, nostalgic feel. Again, I can't use the profile correction. It's not in the Adobe Camera Raw yet. I'm sure it will be soon. Should I do anything else to this? I don't know. Let's see if I can carry over these colors. Let's just edit this one from scratch. Let's see what else is going on here. Yeah, so, oh, Etienne! Alright, hello Etienne, yeah, long time. My feeling about the camera is that it's fantastic. I love it. And I love it more than the 28. I think the 28, and I will definitely, I've said this right in the beginning of the stream, but I definitely want to do a comparison between the two, even though the cameras are pretty much identical, except for the lens. But for me, you know, I like 28. I've been into 28s for a while, but 40 is like my thing. I shoot with 40. That's if I had to choose one focal length that I have to shoot with for the rest of my life, it would be 40. It would be no question. It would be very easy to decide that. And so the fact that Ricoh came out with a 40mm GR is like, first of all, I had no idea that was happening. That was cool. It was surprising news, and very happy with that. And so shots like the one I'm editing right now are tricky on 28 because you can get this view, but then there will be so much more clutter in the foreground, and it's not like you could I can't just get closer because it's up in the air. I can't, you know, suddenly become 20 feet taller, although that'd be pretty cool if I could. So the extra reach with the 40 is nice, and so to me, in a sense, it's a good city lens. You know, the 28 is also a good city lens, but you know, the 40 just kind of works for me. Yeah, although I'm struggling with the colors in this shot, not because of the camera, just because the colors were a little bit kind of lame. But I think it just needs to be warmer again. Let's go 6400. These kind of overcast, gloomy, dusky evenings tend to be a little bit tricky to get a nice color palette going. But it really just comes down to white balance. I think you really got to get the balance just right. And again, I don't think I need vibrance in the shot, do I? Or maybe not that much. Okay, and then maybe some grading like I did before. I don't usually mess with this because it's a little bit extra, a little bit more involved. There's more stuff to go through here. But I think for this shot I can do it. Yeah, how does that look? It's subtle, but I kind of like it more. And I think we need a little bit of that as well. Alright, what else is going on in the chat? Could I talk about a little bit about the way I archive my photos? So I'm not keeping every RAW from what I shoot. So like what you guys can see in the folder here. So let me go back. I'm gonna just copy these settings over. Here's another shot. But yeah. So this, what you're seeing here, these are the 5-star photos. You can see these are the ones that I rated 5-star, which I just keep it simple. It's just 5-star means I want to edit them. No stars means I'm keeping them. So there's some more here. You can see, like, for example, these. Yeah, is this even a keeper? I don't know, but I kept it. I kept this one. There's some weird error there, but yeah, then I kept this one, but then I have another one that I actually want to edit. It's a similar one. So some shots I'll keep, but I did delete some. So there's 79 photos in this folder from what from my walk today. I probably shot 150, so I deleted about half. So I delete the stuff that I think is totally crap. and then I edit some, and then I save those as JPEGs separately, just to make them more accessible. But I keep the RAWs. So I do keep RAWs. I have well over 1 terabyte, probably close to 2 terabytes of photos at this point, after about 10 years of shooting though. So but it does add up. How did you choose the time for posting on Instagram? I just post when I do post. I don't post every day on Instagram. Kind of lazy with posting on Instagram because I have to write something. I feel I should write something. But I basically just post when I get up in the morning, and usually before bed. So I'll probably post when the stream's done. But sometimes I feel lazy and it's already almost 3 a.m. So probably when we're done, I'm just gonna go to sleep. I'm not gonna post. But I just post before bed and when I get up. That's it. It's just it's the time. But I do post on my blog every day, which is tokyostreet.photo, and then I usually post around when I get up or like around lunchtime, and I post 2 photos at once, and then again before bed. And that I do more religiously. Like I do that all the time. I will post on my blog before I go to bed, and that's just because I can do it a little bit faster than on Instagram. Because I don't write a caption, and I post through my computer instead of on the phone. So it's just I can just do it in a few seconds. In fact, I could post on the stream, but it's not that exciting. I'm just posting on a blog. But this was a cool shot. I kind of like this. He wasn't that interesting, but I like this composition. I just wish there was something cooler happening. Like if somebody with something blue in their fashion, or their bag was blue, whatever, some blue person walked through this scene, that would be pretty cool. But I'm going to keep it in mind because I never shot this before today. I just saw it today, even though it's an area I've been to a million times. So I'm going to keep it in mind, and when I'm around there, maybe someday I'll be rewarded with a guy in a bright blue suit standing there, and then it'll be a killer shot. All right. What else? Yeah, Rosetta Stone is also good. I dabbled with that years ago, but eventually, I went to Wanikani just for the kanji. And what? So Yanas, I am using Adobe Camera Raw. So Youngso, you said Lightroom. It's not Lightroom, but it's very similar. It's Adobe Camera Raw. The logo, it's BR. So exactly. So I'm using Bridge to look through the photos, but then I right click and I say Open in Camera Raw, which is actually a part of Photoshop. So if you don't have Photoshop installed, you can't use Adobe Camera Raw because it's like a part of Photoshop. If I took a raw file just on the computer, like in a folder, and clicked on it and tried to open it in Photoshop, it would open this interface as well. So this is part of Photoshop. And in fact, if I press the open button here, it will then open it as a JPEG in Photoshop, or as a rasterized image, raster graphic image. Anyway, let's see, what else should I say or read here? Let's see, firmware update hasn't been released yet. Oh, okay, I see, that's why. So yeah, looking forward to that. Another free good option is raw therapy. Yeah, I've heard good stuff about that. 52mm is cool. Yeah. And yeah, fixed lens, I agree, is the way to learn photography. I was actually thinking about that today as I was walking around. I was like, I would say around a 40 is probably the best beginner lens, I think. I think a 28 is a little hard for a newbie to use, because if well, I'll get to that in a second. Let me just catch up with the street. I was ended up with a lot of road in my shots in 28. Yeah, exactly. That's part of the challenge. That's why I use it. Really like it. Little tweaks. Notice you don't like to straighten the buildings. Yeah, I straighten the buildings sometimes. So I don't think these shots need it, but some shots do. And I might go back and re-edit these. I'm doing it on the stream a little bit less thoroughly than I usually do, because I also want to talk, and it's hard to talk and concentrate on editing at the same time. Just started trying to do photography and usually doing landscape. Hold on, I think I got to do stuff on the screen because YouTube thinks the stream is down if nothing's moving. So I'm gonna just edit a little more here. I think it doesn't like that. It's giving me a warning here. Not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming, but I think it's just that the streaming software which I use, OBS, doesn't send anything if nothing's changing, because that's inefficient, right? There's no point to send stream data if nothing is happening in the video. So let's see if we can kind of keep it going. Hopefully this error goes away. Let me know if the stream is frozen. If that's the case, then I shall restart the stream real quick, and then that should fix it. Alright. So this one is cool. Let's go to this next one here, this little alleyway. Let's see what else did I miss there. Yeah. And then, yeah, Etienne, look, I haven't had the opportunity to test it. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I'm so happy to get this early. I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's really cool that Ricoh released the 40, as you're saying. I think it could be a game changer too. I think, and so that brings what I was just gonna say. It's what I was really thinking about as I was walking around this evening with the 40 version. I was thinking, like, you know, if someone's getting into photography, if they're a beginner. Or let me go back a little bit. I was actually thinking to myself, like, if this was 10 years ago and I was just getting into photography back in those days, I would totally jump on the Ricoh. It's a great first camera. But the 28 version, I often didn't recommend it as someone's first camera. If somebody said, hey, I want to get my first camera, I would usually tell them, like, well, just get like a cheap SLR, because, you know, you'll have a kit lens, you have a zoom lens, and you'll be able to try different focal lengths. Because I think if you're just getting into photography for the first time ever, you probably want to try different things. You don't want to be limited to one focal length. But then, shortly after that, if you want to really learn photography and get good at it, I do think you should get a prime lens, or a camera with a prime lens, like a GR, because it forces a particular, you know, way of thinking. It forces your creativity, and it's going to help you understand perspective and how all that stuff works in terms of composition and framing, and how your position in space affects, you know, how the photo turns out, right? With a zoom lens, it's easy to stand in one place and just zoom in, and then you don't learn those things. But I think a 28mm field of view, like on the regular GR3 or the GR2, is a little tricky. It's not an easy focal length. It's like, it's not like advanced, I guess, but it is a little bit advanced. And I think for two reasons. One is, you know, a lot of people who take photos, not everybody, but a lot who get into photography, will often want to take a photo of people, like their family, their friends, whatever. And doing portraits on a 28 is a little bit tricky. You need to be a little bit more aware of your environment, I think, than on a longer lens, where you can just get a portrait and sort of isolate your subject. And I think I talked about that pretty well in the geisha video that we did for the official Ricoh channel. I think I made a pretty, well, I don't know. I felt really good about the photos in that video, and I felt I demonstrated well how to use the environment. But if you're just getting into photography, you're a newbie, that's kind of hard. It's hard. I definitely didn't when I started out. I did not pay attention enough to my environment, the shooting environment, when I was just starting out in photography. I kind of ignored it a little bit too much, which is fine because I was starting out. So anyway, a 28 naturally gets you all of that environment in, and as somebody said earlier in the chat, there's always a lot of street in my photos. Exactly, you just get a lot of asphalt and stuff like that, and you gotta figure out ways to avoid that, or have it. Sometimes it looks good, but you know what I mean, you gotta work around that. But a 40 is great because it just cuts a lot of that stuff out. It's still a little bit wider than a 50, so you can still do kind of urban cityscape scenes, as I'm showing here on the screen. It doesn't feel tight, but it's just not as wide as a 28, and it's a little easier to work with. And in my opinion, it's like the perfect beginner lens. And it's what I started out on and spent a lot of years shooting with, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but that's what I think. All right. What else? Stream is fine here. Great, glad to hear that. I'm still getting a weird error, but I think it's fine. And yeah, Moldenite, you did say they're releasing a 40mm Z lens. I think it's going to be f2.8, not a. Oh no, it is f2. I think you're right. It is going to be an f2. I think so, which is great because that's what I spent so many years shooting with. So I'm going to probably get that as well. And then it'll be really cool to have, you know, the Ricky in my pocket with the 40mm, and then the Nikki around my neck with the 40mm, and then I can just use whichever one I feel like depending on the day. You know, as I've mentioned in a recent video where I compared big camera versus small camera, they both offer different shooting experiences to me due to how you use them physically in space. So I like using both. So it's going to be nice to have a 40 for both again, because I kind of don't use my old school manual 40 on the Z camera so much. It's kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right on there. I use it sometimes, but it feels like it felt right on my D4. It doesn't feel right on the Z6 for some reason. That was a quick edit. I think that one looks pretty good. Yeah. Let's keep going. Won't have a 40mm anytime soon. They already have a 35. No, but that, if you look at the roadmap, yeah, there is a 40mm pancake on the roadmap, and they just released the 28mm pancake, which I had a chance to try real quick at the Nikon salon in Shinjuku, which seemed pretty cool. But the 40mm is coming later this year, apparently, unless it's delayed. 28 is hard to compose, but for newbies it can actually be sort of comforting because it's like the smartphone focal length. It's true, that is true. The 28 is kind of like the smartphone, right? Do you abandon the King D4? I have the D4, you see the closet behind me? It's in there. The D4 is in there. I take it out for a spin now and then. You know, I miss it. I kind of miss it, but it just, the Z6 offers, and even the GR3 at this point offers so many advantages over the D4. Like, seriously, the GR3 offers many advantages over the flagship D4. Mainly being, well, there's three I can mention. One is the sensor's bigger, the resolution's bigger on the sensors, that's cool. The low light performance is at least as good on the GR3 as on the D4, because, you know, we're comparing a 10-year-old camera with a modern camera. But the biggest one is that the GR3 has a great stabilization system, which is fantastic. I use it all the time. So I can shoot at night at like a half of a second, and it looks awesome. And of course the Z6 has that as well. So the D4 is like, you know, I love it, but it's just kind of, it's not that it's bad, it's just that I have better cameras, so I just use those, you know. But I do take it out now and then, because I love it, because it's fun to use, and it just, nothing beats that ridiculously loud shutter click. I mean, it's so satisfying every time. You know you're taking a photo when you're taking a photo with the D4, there's no question. Right? But, yeah. What else is going on here? Is it about 2 years away? I mean, I don't know. Should I pull up the roadmap? I'm actually really curious. I don't want to pull it up. Here, I'll pull it up on my laptop over here. I don't want to. Nikon 40mm pancake Z. I don't know. I feel like it should be coming sooner. If it's 2 years away, that sucks because I don't want to wait 2 years. So I no offense, but I really hope you're wrong. Because I don't want to wait 2 years for a 40mm pancake for the Z system, especially since they just released it. Yes, I'm looking at a website here that, yeah, they've been, well, I'm not going to read this right now, but there's a development announcement, and the 40mm pancake and the 28mm pancake got announced in the same time, and the 28's already out, so here's the link that I'm looking at. So I'm assuming that, you know, that it's going to be out soon, but I could be wrong. I'm not going to read it carefully right now because I want to keep editing and streaming, but somebody else maybe can click on that and let me know if there's a release date in there. Yeah, this seems pretty cool. I quite like how this came out. This is nice. Let's see here, and this is again where like the reds are a little bit violet, so I'm just gonna like kick this up a little bit to remove that violet and make them more like orangey warm, which is how they are in real life. This color, it didn't look like this, it looked like this. And that looks great. And again, I could just make a very small tweak and it looks fantastic. Alright, that was good. What else? Let's see here. Just keep going. See if I set the max ISO to 2500, what would be reasonable shutter speed? So my min shutter speed is so like with IBIS, as yeah, I was saying 160. I mean, you can go lower than 160 on my Z6, and I think the Z5 has the same IBIS, or at least comparable, right? I'm not sure how they compare technically, but anyway, I get it down to a 10th easily. And a half if I really like try, and then sometimes I'll miss a shot. Same with the GR. I shot some photos. I don't know if some of the photos I'm editing tonight will have that, but I regularly go down to like super low shutter speeds. But to me, the minimum shutter speed is not about what you can or can't hand hold. To me, the minimum shutter speed that I consider for myself is based on the subject. And I'm often shooting people, and I want them to be sharp. When I'm using that minimum shutter speed function, which means when I'm shooting in aperture priority mode, I want people to be frozen. And like this case, so see, my minimum is 250. So on the GR3, I set it to 250. On my Z6, I set it to 250. On my D4, I set it to 250. And as you can see, at 250, he's sharp. Even though my ISO went up to 5,000, it's a bit noisy. I don't really care. I want to make sure that he's sharp. That was the most important thing. So my max ISO is 6400 on all my cameras, and my minimum shutter speed is 1/250 on all my cameras. That's just my my go-to. Let's make this a little bit brighter. I feel like this can be a little bit warmer. It feels kind of cold, this photo. There we go. That's better. It's a little more inviting. Yeah. Let's see. She said pancake. I thought I misunderstood you. Yeah, no, pancake. So really, really short, flat lenses are called pancake lenses. And I don't want to get up and go get my D4 from the closet, but it has a little 40mm pancake attached to it. So the lens is probably like an inch long on the front of the camera. Well, maybe it has no photo on the roadmap, but there's a photo of it in that blog I just sent. So it would be weird if they already have a visual thing, but anyway, we'll see. We'll see. Things change. I'm optimistic and hopeful. Yeah. Yeah, I figured they don't have a hard date, but they did say this year, right? Anyway. Yeah, exactly, Molden Knight, that's right, you got it. Mainly considering the motion of the subject. He made a big mistake. I told him to go with a mirrorless, but he bought a DSLR. You know what? That's not a big mistake. There's nothing wrong with the DSLR. I love DSLRs. And honestly, if I could have most of the features of my mirrorless in my SLR, which might not be technically possible, but like if I could have a camera with an optical viewfinder and the same stabilization that the Z6 has, and then the latest sensor and all that stuff, and face tracking and all that kind of fancy stuff, but an optical viewfinder, I would totally go for it. I do not have really any love for EVFs. I don't think, you know, this whole idea that you see right away the exposure, I'm sure that's great for a lot of people, but like, I spent 10 years without that, and I always nailed the exposure. Not always, but like, you know what I mean? Like, getting the right exposure was not a problem with an optical viewfinder. So the only real advantage that an EVF specifically gives to me is that idea that you can see right away the exposure, and to me, and the depth of field, which actually I find much more useful than the exposure part. But I think it's technically not possible to have all these really bitchin' features like face tracking and, you know, just improved tracking focus in general, forgetting about faces. But like the Z6's tracking is better than the D4's tracking, which is nice. And also, of course, the lower weight and you know, the smaller physical form factor. And I think also the IBIS is very hard to do unless you have a mirrorless camera. Like all that stuff is just better in mirrorless. So I think mirrorless is great, but I don't think your friend made a mistake getting a 90D. I think, you know, SLRs still have a place, and he can get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And if he's not doing pro work, it really doesn't matter. If you have the best camera out there with all the bells and whistles, what matters is he going to have fun using it? And I think you can have a ton of fun using an SLR. And you know, to be really frank, like, they're both fun. My Z6 is fun and my D4 is fun, but my D4 is almost never frustrating, while the Z6 pisses me off sometimes, which is why I made a video called Z6 Love and Hate, because I love it, but there's some things I hate about it. The D4 is like nothing I hate about it, other than that I guess it's heavy, but you quickly get used to that. You just got to hit the gym, get the big guns, and then you can carry the D6 or the D4 all day, no problem. So yeah, there's a bit of a rant there, but SLRs are great. All right, let's see here. So here again, a 28 would have been way too wide for this because it's already kind of wide, but I like this, you know, silhouetted figure through the bus with the LED sign back there, and then it says out of service, but kind of struggling with the shadows here. I think I made them too purple. That was the issue. This tint thing is easy to overuse. So as you can see, I'm only going like +2. +10 is a lot, right? It makes things look really purple. That looks better. All right, and then I can make it a little brighter. And I think I don't need the shadows to be that bright. I can make them a little bit darker. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, not a perfect photo, but kind of cool. Let's see. What else here? Yeah, an optical viewfinder on the GR would be cool, but it would make it bigger. And they do sell a one that you can put into the, into the hot shoe. But then it's not like a single lens reflex style viewfinder. It's slightly off, right? So, but it's still pretty cool. Maybe I should just get one of those things because it's But I'm like a bit of a cheapskate when it comes to buying accessories, and I'm just gonna tough it out. Yeah, Nikon did release that 105 macro recently, and I always tell myself I should get a macro lens. Kind of get into macro. When I first started photography a long time ago, I really liked the idea of macro. Yeah, I never owned a macro lens, but I always thought, I should get one. And I kind of never got around to it, and then I gravitated away from that genre of photography. But Ricoh has a pretty good macro function. I haven't really messed with it on the 40, not even at all. I haven't, like I said, just had the camera for a couple of days. But on the OG GR3, I regularly would use the macro if I needed to. It was that's one of the cool, like, kind of unsung features of the GR cameras, is that because the sensor's small and the lens is actually an 18mm, it can focus super close. And I guess they also added some way that, like, the elements reconfigured to be more macro. That's why there's a macro button. And it works really well, and I quite like it. So, and you also get a lot of depth of field because it's an 18s. And the one challenge with shooting macro is DOF gets really shallow because you're focusing so close. So it's a nice, what do I want to say? Like, it's just a nice combo of focal length and sensor size, right? All right. Once again, something feels a little bit off. That's just because, yeah, there we go, just to be warmer. Alright, let's see here. I think actually this view is okay. See, this is one where I might straighten the buildings, but I'm just going to straighten the horizon and leave it at that. Because the middle is straight, the edges are not. If I actually tilt it, like use the, this tool to correct the thing, I think it's going to, yeah, it's going to do that. Well, that looks kind of cool after I crop it, but then I'll have to crop it a lot. So I'm just going to leave it just rotated a little bit. Let's start over. Let's just reset the crop there. It's hard to get it just right, actually. Looks pretty good. Okay, I'll mess with that later. Let's see here, this one too could use a little bit of straightening, I suppose. There we go. And this last one, I usually don't like to include ads, but in this case it just kind of looked funny to me because even make beyond just kind of doesn't make any sense. In Japanese it says tsukuru o, then I don't know the other kanji. Tsukuru means make, so I guess that's beyond. I don't know. The contrast here is kind of funny. So I took it, but I usually don't like to include ads and commercial things like that. Yeah, sometimes that's why I say that I like to use. Sometimes I use my Ricoh, and sometimes I use the Nikki, because, like, even today there was one shot I was doing where I was kind of like, man, I wish I had a viewfinder for this one shot, because I wanted to see something pretty small. I was trying to frame it really just right, and it was kind of at arm's length, kind of hard to see. And of course, if I put it right against my face, it's kind of hard to look at it because it's a bigger screen. So then, like an EVF, but it's okay. You just work with what you got. And hello, Sebastian. Yeah, an SLR workout, exactly. Thank you, Joel. Yeah, I can explain stuff, but, like, let me know, what do you want to know? Like, why did I compose it the way I did, or? Yeah, exactly. It feels kind of surreal, Ben. I guess that's why I shot it that way. So generally, I mean, I have an article on my blog, which maybe I can quickly share here, but generally, I keep the first thing I keep in mind about composition, and like this is a good example of it, is kind of less is more. I like to have not too much stuff. And by the way, here's something funny I'm gonna do. So before I talk about that, this thing is lame, and I knew it was there. I remember seeing it, but to frame it out, I would have to like sort of compromise the rest of the frame. So here's where I'm gonna totally cheat. I'm gonna use this spot removal tool. I could do this later in Photoshop. I like to just do it now, and boom, it's gone. That's it. Now I don't have to crop it. It's just I can keep this composition because this is what worked for me, and I got rid of that random little ugly thing which didn't really need to be there. So yeah, less is more. I might still straighten it though. Yeah, I could use a straightening because the building looked like it was falling over. And then I like to have leading lines that sort of guide my eye through the frame, but not just leading lines. People, when you use the word leading lines, what people think of right away is like that classic example of like, what do you call it? Like train tracks converging, and that's not, you know, I hate that example because it oversimplifies it. So here we go. This is the article I wrote about composition a while back on my blog. Yeah, 79 minutes and it's 3:12. So I'm thinking, but I'm almost through the entire folder, so I think I'm just gonna get to the end, and then that's when we'll call it a night. You know, once I get editing, it's kind of hard to stop. This regularly happens, except usually instead of me podcasting in a sense, I'm listening to a podcast and then I'm editing. It's kind of the opposite. All right, so leading lines, or leading geometry as I like to call it. So what I want is I want the parts, the lines or the shapes in the image to help guide the viewer's eye to what I want them to look at in a particular order. It's like a hierarchy, right? And sometimes it's really simplistic, and sometimes it's more complicated, and that just depends on what I'm shooting. So in this case, it's pretty simple. You're obviously going to look at the massive skyscraper in the middle of the photo first, because it's just right there in your face. So the composition here is very simplistic. It's not particularly complex. I was just mainly focusing on keeping the surroundings simple so that they're not distracting, right? So you're not, like, it would be bad if you looked at something else first, for me, because I want you to look at the building. The neon sign's a bit distracting, but to me the neon sign is like the supporting actor in this scene. The building is the star, and the neon is the support. So it's okay if you look at that one first, because it's also interesting. It's also, to me, an important part of the scene. Okay, let's see if we can fix that neon color a little bit. There we go. All right, but of course there's a lot more to it. There's some other nuances. There's also this idea of tension, which I talk about. So if you read that blog post, you will definitely understand more about my composition ideas, but I'll try to talk more about them as I edit these photos here. Something else that's not working for me here is these yellows, because there was these yellow lights in the street that I was on. I don't like how they look. I just don't like how they look. So I'm going to just tone them down a little bit and desaturate those particular colors, and then bring up the reds a little bit. I'll apply that to this shot too. There we go. And yeah, I listen to music sometimes too. Depends on my mood. Sometimes I'll put on music, and sometimes I'll put on a podcast, but I'll always listen to something. It's never dead silent in here. And these are the yellow lights I was talking about, so you can see there's this warm, cool kind of contrast here, but in this shot it sort of works. And so again, you see I did that horizontal composition because I wanted a horizontal one. Then I realized, you know what, I'm getting a little too much maybe stuff on the sides here, this stuff. So I went vertical, because with vertical, I knew I could really focus on the building, and the building becomes truly the centerpiece. And here's something interesting. So these are, see these weird color patterns here? So these are not artifacts of the sensor causing issues because the colors are getting messed up or something like that. These are mores, which is an issue caused by this repeating brick pattern, and then the Bayer pattern on the sensor of how the different color pixels are arranged. And there's like nothing you can do about that. Even if I increase the color noise, it improves it. It improves it a bit. So maybe we can crank the color noise on this one. But it doesn't really matter in my opinion, because when you, yeah, I guess it does actually fix it pretty well. I'm impressed. But at this scale, if I'm posting this on Instagram, you're not going to see those mores anyway. It's just one of those interesting little things. But that'll happen on pretty much any camera. Alright, let's see here. So this one I cropped a little, or I framed, I should say, a little bit too tight, and it's like just barely not touching. And this creates, for me, tension. And I write about it in that blog post. And I don't want tension in a photo like this, because the tension causes you to want to look at that tip. At least I do. I naturally look up here. It's like, ooh, it's so tight up there. It's almost touching, but not quite. I don't like that, so I loosen it up by, you know, remove some of that tension by giving a little bit more headroom there. And to me, this is the better shot. So I actually quite like this one. I'm gonna label it blue. Got another version here. What's the difference? I backed up a bit because I didn't like how this light was getting chopped off over here. So I thought I'll just back up. Actually, that's the keeper. That's the best shot right there out of this set. And this is cool too, with the hotel neon. And again, you see how it kind of breaks down. I don't know if that can be fixed in this case. Maybe if I bring the luminosity on the blues down, the luminance I should say. Let's see if that works. Yeah, but then it messes everything else up. So I'll just leave it. It's not worth it to like play with the colors here. Alright, let's see here. Yeah, that's fine. So let's leave these like that, and there's one more. Yeah, this one's okay. It's kind of awkward with the one light in the bottom. Yeah. What about this one? What's the difference here? Oh, I just kind of, yeah, I just took two because this is, excuse me, here we go. This is on a 15th. So I usually when I'm on the slower shutters, like a 15th, even with the stabilization, I take a couple because, you know, I'm holding it at like arm's length in front of me, up in the air, so it might still be a little bit shaky. I kind of like this one a little more. All right. So yeah, that kind of what I was just saying. How many photos did I take? It will depend. If a scene's really interesting, in terms of working the scene and trying different compositions, I might take 20, 30 photos of a scene. But then once I get a framing that I like, if I'm using the very slow shutter and relying on the stabilization, I will regularly take like 3 or 4, because even though the stabilization is good, sometimes it doesn't nail it, and I want to make sure I have a sharp one. But if stabilization is not an issue, I'm shooting at regular, fast shutter speeds, then I can just, I might just take one. I don't need to take more than one. Here, let me copy the settings to this shot too. Oh, here we go. This is a good one. I like how I got 4 lamps. So that must be what I was thinking. Yeah, right. I remember that now. Yeah, I took this. I was like, it's kind of awkward if there's just one lamp. So I reframed it to get 4 of them, and now it makes more sense. There's like a repeating pattern down here. This is a good one. This is a keeper too. I like this. This works for me. Oh, hey, let's get rid of the. See here, I got the color noise up to 60, and still the mores are there. There's just nothing you can do about them. Yeah. Oh well. Like I said, they're not important. Okay. Yeah, I agree. I like how there's this warm, cool thing. It's because it was basically blue hour, that nice blue dusk going on in the sky, and then we had these golden sodium vapor lamps on the street. So, yeah. Do I do other art? I used to. I used to do like 3D digital art. Like what you do in like 3D Studio or something. I used to really love to use a software called Bryce. If somebody in the chat has heard of Bryce 3D, I'm gonna be impressed. It was pretty big, or like not big, but like popular with newbies like me, with people just getting into that kind of stuff, because it was the entry skill level required was extremely low, and you could start making stuff easily in it. So when I was like in my teens, I used to do a lot of stuff with that. I used to create works in there, like create art. So I like that. And then I went through like a fractal phase, like fractals. There's a lot of fractal art, so I dabbled in that for like a while. But basically these days, no, I don't do any other visual art besides photography. Although I do sometimes graphic design related stuff for like I Explore, you know, like making the thumbnails. So I'm handy with Photoshop, but I wouldn't call myself like an artist or an illustrator or anything like that. You've used Bryce? Awesome. I figured, well, as I said it, I was like, if Cody's still watching, he's probably going to say, you use Bryce. So exactly. I used to love Bryce, man. And yeah, well, it was, but I was using it before DAZ Studios. That's what a hipster I am. It was made by a company called Meta Creations. And they also are the people who originally made Poser. Poser is still owned and famous, or like famously used by DAZ Studios, or created by DAZ, or whatever, promoted by DAZ Studios. Poser's still around, I think, but Bryce is pretty much dead, I think. But maybe there's still a latest version that people still use. But I love Bryce. I had so much fun. Yeah. Let's see here. Alright, let's keep going with this one. Maybe at the end of the stream I can pull up some Bryce stuff and show you guys what I used to make. That could be the treat. If you stay till the end of the stream, I can show you my old artworks from when I was like 15, what I used to make in Bryce. Don't laugh. They're very rudimentary, but I had fun. And I learned a lot about, you know, working with images on the computer back in those days. See, hey, now I'm just getting into street photography, and I have an FF body and a 24-70 and 50. Do you have a favorite prime lens for street? Yeah, I do. It's the 40, which is why I love the 40mm GR3X. So yeah, 40 all the way. Best prime. There's no better prime. Oh man, I love how this shot turned out. This is great. So you see here I was kind of, again, in terms of compositional thinking, right? At first I was like, I kind of want the street, and I used a slower shutter, as you can see, a 15th. To kind of make the people look more like a texture, but it didn't really work. They weren't moving fast enough, and they were moving towards me, so the motion blur wasn't going to be very strong. If they were moving left and right, it would be, as this guy is, much more blurred, and that would look better. But I found it kind of cluttered and distracting. So you see, then it got emptier. There's less people in the streets. So again, I was like, all right, maybe I'll get them, but I didn't like it. So I was like, forget it, no people. I went a little higher, still a little messy. Finally, I was like, no, this is it. And you see what I mean by less is more. I'm always trying to eliminate things that are not necessary from the shot, so that what's remaining is stronger. Thanks to that. And to me, this skyscraper tucked between the other two buildings looks real nice. This is great. Okay, now here's just a matter of now getting colors just right, because they feel a little bit off. Gotta do that green trick. Yeah, that's much better. You can see what it does to the greens. That looks actually more realistic. That looks like a little bit too blue, but it's cool. It works for me in this scene. It's not quite realistic. You know, I'm always like dancing on the border of what I consider to be real, but also will look good. So I don't want to overly mess with the colors, because I do believe in realism in my images. I don't want to portray the city falsely, but I also want to make it look good. So sometimes I make some small sacrifices like that. All right, this shot's a keeper. Very nice. Mark that blue for later for myself. There's poser models on an Iron Maiden album. That's cool. Thank you, Trinity, for cheerleading the likes. I love it. I appreciate it. That's awesome. I really like that. Thank you. Oh, it's now owned by Renderosity. Okay, and then Bryce is still on DAZ. Okay, I didn't know that. Cool. That's great. Yeah, I'm sure Poser's been well replaced, but I remember when it came out, it was like amazing. It was like, wow, you can just like pose. You know, I used to play around with pose and stuff, and you do some dumb stuff in Poser. Poser, good old days. Let's see. If you ever need any music or vids, just hit me up. Yeah, cool. That's cool. I'm starting to dabble, thanks to Cody, actually, who's here in the chat. He had the idea last time we shot together to shoot a reel, and so I posted a reel today for the first time ever on Instagram. And I kind of like the ambient sounds, but I also thought, man, it might be cool with some music. Alright, let's see here. Let's keep going so the stream doesn't freeze. The rumor is the new FTZ have a built-in motor, which would be pretty cool. Like a more beefy one for old D lenses. That would be pretty sick. Alright, let's see here. This is kind of a... I like photos of this kind of subject matter, like signage and stuff, but this one's not that good. And I just kind of did it. But again, 40 was nice here because it gave me the little bit of extra reach. And hold on, I might have made myself too low now as I sit back in my chair. Let's fix that. Yeah. And you can see what the green, again, this green primary thing does to the reds. See, the reds kind of like maybe more realistic, but now it pops a little more. So I like using the green primary to actually fix the reds mainly. And also a little bit the greens. Yeah, the 40, like for example, for this shot gave me a little bit more reach because it was kind of higher up, you know, so I didn't want to, okay, yeah, the camera's fine. I didn't want to, or if I had the 28, I would have to get like a little bit closer. It would still have worked. This was a little bit better. All right, and this shot's really cool. And here's an example of where I think the profile is messing up. I get this on my Nikon cameras as well. The blue here is a little bit weird. This is not how it should look. And I think that's not the sense, like if I had the right profile, the color profile, I think it would look good. But for now, we'll just hopefully fix it with editing. I think there is a way to make that work just by editing better. Okay, but overall, I like this shot a lot. I love the glow. There's not much going on. It's kind of a boring scene. It's just a pretty scene, but I like how it looks. There we go. Cool it off a little bit. I think that was way too much, the 8 there. It's making these shadows too purple. And then let's see if we can fix these blues somehow. By saturating them up a little bit and lightening or luminance down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. But you see, that shouldn't be necessary, but the profile would fix it. But still, it looks a lot better. And if we just undo this, did it mess up? So that's something I sometimes check when I do selective color changes with the HSL, with the color mixer. You see, because obviously I'm just trying to fix the sign, but it's also affecting the vending machine a little bit, the guy inside, and the sign on the left. But it's fine. It doesn't look bad. So I'm just going to stick with it. But I'm going to tone it down. It was a little too much. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go, instead of plus 20, we're going to go plus 10. Instead of minus 20, we're going to go minus 10. Compromise. But I like this shot. That ramen sword, that's an Ikebukuro, and those are all over the place. I still see them a lot. Why do you use the Nikon neutral profile again? Yeah, because it's easier for editing, exactly. It starts more flat, and it's just, you know, I don't have to like undo contrast, like, you know what I mean, like recover really dark shadows or highlights. It just looks flatter. But not too flat, because there is a flat profile, but then that one looks extremely flat. I just find neutral works for me. It's kind of like right on. I haven't tried a portrait, Elbin. Thank you, by the way. But because it's just, I don't know, I didn't really see an opportunity for that. And I was doing street. And I don't really do like portrait style street, so it didn't really come up. Not that I'm against it, but if there was a chance, I would have done it for sure. But I didn't encounter anything that warranted a portrait. But I did, you know, like get shots like this where I could see the bokeh a little bit, right? So this is 2.8, and you can see some bokeh. It's nice. It's definitely a little bit more bokeh-licious than the other one because the lens is a little longer. But it's still, you know, remember, it's not really a 40, right? It's a 26.1 millimeter lens. That's what it says on the front. And the bokeh is determined by that, by the actual focal length. So it's certainly a better portrait camera, or more, I would say, naturally suited for portraits than the regular GR3. But, you know, it's not like a full frame Nikon with an 85mm strapped on it. You know, don't expect that, right? I really like this scene. The reason I took it at this weird angle, because honestly I wanted to shoot this sign flat on. But the reason I did it this way is because this is the only angle from which these beautiful reflections, so there's some light way off down the street, the headlights of a car or whatever, and they were hitting this reflective surface, and it looks cool, and it creates these really nice effects. This is really sick. So I just shot it at this weird angle just to see this effect in camera. This is not a great photo, but this is an example of something I mentioned in a recent video about how you know, photography is not about the camera and the photos, it's about how you see the world and how you just appreciate the beauty that's out there. And to me, this just looked beautiful, so I just wanted to take a photo of it, just to have a photo of it. I'm definitely not going to post this photo because it's not interesting enough to be posted, but, you know, I wanted to shoot it, so that's a good example of that. Yeah, exactly. The blue's jumping out. I agree. It's like very vivid, and it's part of the reason is because it was a highly reflective surface for it, because it's like a safety thing, right? But yeah, it was really good. First 2 seasons of RWBY were animated completely. But what is RWBY? RWBY. What is that? Is that a famous show? Can't think of what that is. But the fact that it was animated in Poser is pretty cool, because I didn't think anybody was using it for that. All right, which photo are we going to start with? They're all similar. So first I saw this dude, and there's this statue here on the street, and I was shooting through the eye of the statue, which is cool. And then this girl rolled up after that dude left, and I think she's better. She has a cool pose to her. Which photo do I really want to edit from? So when I have a whole bunch of photos like this, I tend to start with one, and then I just copy the settings over, and I try to start with my favorite one. I think it's this one. Okay, she's looking at her nails. This is a bit of an expressive scene. I don't like these people on the right. But let's start with this one, just to use it as the editing kind of base. Yeah, so highlights down, but not too much. They're a little bit blown in the back there. Let's see. Just reading the chat here, mentioned it, but I noticed you're doing almost everything with your keyboard. Looks real quick, lots of tabbing and shift up, down, nudge. Exactly. So I'm using tab and shift tab, so tab goes down, shift tab goes back up, and then I'm using the number pad on the right side to type in numbers. And I love editing this way, and I wish Adobe would actually pay more attention to this, because, for example, they changed the color grading panel, which used to be called split toning, and you used to be able to do it very easily with the keyboard. But now when I press Control 5 to go in here, so by the way, to change the tabs, it's Control and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for example. And now, like, you know, see, this is not keyboard friendly. I have to actually click here, then I can use, you know, the keyboard. So I kind of avoid using this panel. Honestly, you don't need it for most photos that I take. I don't think I need it. So, but I don't like using it mainly because it's not keyboard friendly. This is also not keyboard friendly. Like, you have to click on this, and then if the camera, so there's, I wish they would make it more keyboard friendly. I don't think they realize people do it the way I do it. But I'm sure I'm not the only one. All right, keep going here. As I figured, the colors are gonna be really tough here because that background just kind of doesn't look right. But I'm gonna have to work on that a little bit. Pronounced Ruby is the first American anime in up to season 7. Okay, cool. I'll look into that. I'm curious. Acronym Ruby, Vice, Blake, and Yang anime. Oh, okay. Yeah. I never heard of that, but I'll look into it. Started in 1988. Crazy. What's the shutter count on my D4? Well, okay, so I don't remember, but I want to say I got it well over 200,000. It's gotta be. Because the last time I checked it was in the high 100s, and then I didn't check for a long time. So probably like 250 or something. But then it's actually 0 or like very low, less than 10,000, because I had it replaced. I replaced the shutter. And the reason I did that is because Nikon, at least in Japan, but I think globally, stopped servicing D4s as of the end of 2020. So like in November 2020 was the last time you could get the shutter replaced. And my shutter was working fine, but because I knew it would eventually die, I felt like I should just get it replaced, and then at least it will last me maybe 10 years or something if I use it little by little. So, and that's also part of why I don't use it as much, because I don't want to break something on it. It's kind of like a memento for me now. And if I mess it up, especially if like the shutter dies, there's no replacing it. Nikon will not replace it. And that's exactly what might happen to my D3, which I still own, but the shutter died years ago and it's now just dead. And now it's just like a, you know, something that I own as a little memento, but it doesn't work. So yeah, that's kind of sad. I'm sad about that. I wish my D3 could still work. I wish I would have never really used it because it's quite old at this point and there's so many better cameras. But it would be fun to do like a YouTube video about like, hey, let's take the D3 out for a spin. A camera that came out in 2007. Is it still good? And you bet your ass it's still good. I'm sure the sensor in there is still. Because when I look at my old photos from back in the day, they still look great. So it would be fun to go out and take it out for a spin. But unfortunately, it is dead. Okay, so here I'm going to crop a little bit this way because I don't like the white area up there. And there's like too much on the left. And then we're going to just copy these settings everywhere. Have you seen the Elgato Stream Deck? Kind of pricey, but you can add loads of hackers. I don't know if I've seen that one, but I've seen other like custom things with dials and like, I don't know. I do it so fast. I don't need that. I always think I'm gonna have to relearn. Is it really gonna be faster? I mean, I already feel I'm doing it really fast, and I don't. None of those things that I've seen have enough control surfaces or control inputs to really have like everything that's in the panel on the right. So I would still need to use the keyboard for some stuff anyway, or the mouse. And to me, it's just pointless. I just like using the keyboard. I'm very happy with it. I have a nice mechanical keyboard. It's very clickety-clackety, as you can tell. And on this photo, as you just probably noticed, I pumped up the noise reduction to 25, and then the sharpening to 70. This is what it looks like without. So this is at 6400 ISO. It is getting a little bit noisy, so I think it looks better without it. Is it really necessary though? Probably not, but I think it just looks better without it. And honestly, I said the one with the girl is good. I think this dude is better. This is the best shot. And then this other one with him as well. I also like, by the way, this red here. This was a taxi that was behind me and to the right, and its red taillights were reflecting on it. That's why later it's not there, because the taxi was gone. So this is my favorite shot. I like that it says Louis. Maybe we crop it so it's only Louis, and then that's his name. That's Louis there. Louis, looking lost in the city. That's the title of the photo for sure. Alright. There we go. The one with the girl is also pretty cool, but it's just okay. This one's nice. But now it's like, okay, I'm shooting this through some opening, but we're losing totally any real context of what this thing is. So although she looks really cool, it doesn't really work. So let me just finish editing these, but these are not, to me, not the keepers. I find like the other one. Well, this one's kind of cool though. It's like she's in a bubble. In this little hidden universe. Do I need to straighten it? It kind of doesn't matter. I should probably crop it a little bit though. Just a little bit. Alright. Yeah, these are pretty cool too. I like this one. I like this one actually, now that I think about it. Okay. Alright. Yeah, and this one's not good because people are in the back. So again, in terms of composition, those people, they clutter up the background. She doesn't stand out as much, so it doesn't work. Right, so that's another compositional thing that I considered. Have I used Topaz Denoise AI? I tried it, and I found it to be just like marginally better than what I can get in Adobe Camera Raw, and so I felt like, oh, I don't want to pay for this software just for that. And I don't want to bootleg it either. I try not to bootleg things anymore. That's what I used to do when I was a teenager. Like Bryce and Poser, you think I bought that stuff? I bootlegged that. I was poor. I was just a kid. That's my excuse at least. Yeah, D700 as well. Still amazing in 2021. I agree. Don't know if they're going to be faster than a keyboard. Yeah, that's what I think too. Yeah, cool, cool. All right, we're getting close to the end. I think these are the last couple photos. As I mentioned, I don't know, do you guys want me to show you my old Bryce stuff? I'm a little bit shy actually at this point. it's very abstract and like odd. But let's see. Let me just finish these couple photos, and then we'll see if I can extract it because I have them like in an archive, like zipped up. All right, this one's pretty cool. This is not the most interesting scene, but again, I just love the beautiful colors, the beautiful glow here. So, you know, couldn't help it. Wanted to shoot this. Just had to shoot it just for the sake of seeing that beautiful gradation on the screen here. Okay, crank up the this thing here a little bit. This is one where I might actually do the you know, this. Like anytime you get a photo with a literal grid in the photo in the form of these bricks, I might do the perspective correction, because it's just, again, very jarring, at least to me, to see the grid and it's off, and it's very hard to get this just right in the camera. Believe me, I tried. I had the spirit level turned on, and I'm trying to hold the Ricoh, you know, just the right way, so that it you know, it's all level, and I just couldn't do it. And you see, this just looks better. So yeah, I cheated. I totally cheated, but it looks better, and that's the point, is just to make a nice work of art, right? So it doesn't matter that I cheated. It's not unrealistic cheating, right? It's just, and oh, and here in this one I actually did kind of nail it. So here, without any correction, this one looks good. All right, this one's a little bit too bright. I tried different exposures. There we go. And I tried the same wall, but a little bit further down. And then there we go. And this one's not that interesting. I was just curious, again, just to see this beautiful color. And so, I mean, this is a great example. You can see the Ricoh handles colors fantastically. And these kind of neon colors that are very vivid are tricky. And older cameras like the D3, which is great, it actually, I remember back in the day, it sometimes would struggle with these things, especially at higher ISOs. This is at ISO 400, not that high. But the latest cameras do really well on this, including the GR. All right. All right. Nice stocky keyboard. What is it? My keyboard is a Filco, is the brand, F-I-L-C-O. It's a Majestic Touch. It's a Japanese brand. I think you can get them overseas, though. I don't think they're only available in Japan. Yeah, Lightroom has a vertical. That's exactly what I was using. I was using that tab. Yeah, except this was in Adobe Camera, but it's the same thing. Yeah, that's the thing. I never heard about that, and I actually thought. So I'm answering you, Christopher, about the tracking and thing, and metering. I thought I was going crazy, and then a couple other people in the comments of that video said, yeah, I saw it too, and I thought, okay, good. This is not just me being nuts about it. All right, so we've reached the end of that. Let's open up my archive of Bryce stuff. Bryce work from 1999, 2004. All right. I look at this once in a while, but not often. So let's see here. Extract here. There we go. And they are TIFFs. Let's open them up in Bridge here. Don't ask me why I call the folder that. That's just what I named it like 20 years ago when I made this stuff. Bryce NFTs. Yeah, good idea, Cody. This is the OG stuff. And you can see I have the BR4 files. I used Bryce 4. So I have the actual original wireframes. I could open these up in Bryce if I wanted to. And man, they're so tiny. What's the resolution on this? This is a 1024 by 768 image. Sorry guys, my little crappy laptop back then probably took like an hour to render this. So here, I'll just zoom in. But there you go. So some of the stuff I did was more abstract. I tried to do like weird alien sci-fi kind of stuff like this. This one's not too bad. This is terrible though. This is terrible. I'm embarrassed to show this. But you know, I had enough sense to go in Photoshop, or maybe I even was using Corel Photo Paint at the time, and actually I remember doing this. I selected these background, you know, alien cities or whatever these are, and you see I blurred them. I added a little bit of blur because I felt I wanted to add depth of field. And I'm actually proud of myself that I had the presence of mind to do that way back then. you know. Let me just look at the chat here. If you use the AE lock, will that help disconnect exposure from tracking? It might, Moldenite, it might. But what I just did is I just stopped using matrix metering, and I started using center weighted metering with the B3 setting to average metering, and then that just totally disconnects it and it's not a problem anymore. Yeah. It's already disconnected if you're not spot metering. Yeah, but it is if you are evaluative. Yeah, so it is connected if you're evaluative matrix metering and using subject tracking. And that was my problem. All right, let's continue here. This one's pretty cool. I remember this one too. This was one that I liked the colors and I liked the concept. The idea here, it's like some alien planet with these like strange geyser mineral formations shooting up like methane gas into the air or something like that, you know? Yeah. It's pretty cool. Here I was playing with some lighting, I guess. That's kind of a nice one. You know, they're not that bad. I mean, for like a... This one sucks. For like a 14-year-old kid. I shouldn't be too ashamed. But yeah, I try to do the sci-fi. For this kind of stuff, price was obviously not good. I should have been learning 3D Studio. And I did have a bootleg 3D Studio, and I was trying, but it was pretty hard, and I found it... I don't know, I just didn't enjoy it so much. I much more enjoyed just creating these more abstract kind of pieces like this. Here as well, I remember adding these bits of glow, and the lens flare in Photoshop. Oh, lens flare. Gotta have the lens flare. But yeah, it turned out pretty cool. I like that. Alright, here's a little bit of a more... I remember being very inspired by old PC games like Myst. You guys, of course, know of Myst and other games like that. So this was definitely, I had like Myst in mind. That's pretty cool. Little chess set. Nice. Another version of it. That's awful. That's terrible. Let's just go past it. Oh, but that's much better. That's much better. Still, you know, but much better with the moon there. Very cool. It's kind of sci-fi tunnel. That's kind of cool. I like the effect of the glow coming out of there. These are great. Thank you. I appreciate it. 14-year-old me is also very happy that you think they're great. The water does hold up remarkably well. I agree. The water in Bryce was beautiful. I'm not going to go back. There's more water. There's more water here. This one's quite good. I remember this one. I was quite proud of this one. I felt I got a decent mood in this one, which was I was trying to go for. This mysterious, again, Myst game style mood. And yeah, the water does hold up remarkably well. The water rendering was good. And metallic surface, here's another one that's all about water. You got water in the bottom, water on the top, mountains made of water, everything's water. It looks pretty good. I actually used to like spot metering because you can always, yeah, it's true. I mean, spot works, but I find, yeah, just average is best for me. Webcam chat, hot girls, and what is this spam? What is this? What is this? How do I get rid of this? Report. Unwanted or spam. Get rid of this. Okay. Do I have to keep reporting each one? Remove. Oh, here we go. I can put user in time. Okay, whatever. There we go. I don't know, but I think I killed it. I think I killed it. I've never had this happen before. Anyway, let's keep going here. That's interesting and strange. Here we go. I remember this one. You know what I did here? This is funny. This kind of like, this is something I do with my camera these days, like with real photography. So this was like a landscape scene, and then I put a metallic sphere with a reflective surface, and then I pointed the camera at the sphere, so you're seeing the reflection of what's behind the camera in the sphere, and that's why it's kind of bent, and the colors are distorted in this weird funky way. And I do this these days with my camera in the city for reals. That's kind of cool. I should probably wrap this up. It's almost 4 a.m., but let's just get through all these. There's not that many of them. It's only like 50 or something. It's kind of a cool landscape. That's pretty neat. Some DNA strand kind of effect going on. I remember, yeah, I think it's like some nucleus thing. Some crummy pyramids in a very dusty Egypt. It's kind of cool. I remember this. I did like many layers of sky effects and then put some lights in there to kind of get that depth. That's a pretty pathetic landscape. That's a pretty pathetic planet scene. Why is the planet so shiny? It's not gassy enough. That's cool though. Yeah, I remember doing these like metallic abstract worlds inspired, like I said, by games like Myst very much. I think these were my best ones, these kinds of things. This is very cool. Some sort of, you know, Stargate thing. Another sphere reflection concept thing, like I just mentioned. That's pretty neat. The green one. Very cool. Some sort of hellish, like a descent into hell itself. Badass robot inspired by a mech warrior, which I used to play a lot of. Yeah, this is cool. Not great, but I remember putting a lot of work into this. This was a lot of work in Bryce to make something like this. It was very tedious. This is not good. My natural landscapes were terrible. Some lava thing going on. That's pretty neat. That's cool. I like the structure. The image is kind of bland because it's just like, oh, it's an object. But the object itself is cool. That's pretty cool too. Also cool. Sort of atoms or something. Glass spheres with mountains in them. I remember this too. This took forever to render because of all the reflections and internal reflections. It took hours. Like I would leave it on overnight. Some cool Martian colony thing. And the same thing with like, I think I remember this. I did this, and then like a couple months later, I improved it and I did this. And this is not great, but it's much better. Like in terms of the lighting and whatnot. Let's see what else people are saying here. Thank you. Yeah, getting spammed is a sign that you're appreciated. That's right. Can someone send you a link? I'll send you a link later, Cody. I got some links. Does anyone remember the lens ball high of Egypt? Yeah. Let's see here. Better than environment students' compositions, and they're much older than 14. Great. Well, I thank you, Cody. I appreciate that. MechWarrior 2, that's the one. I used to play MechWarrior 2 so much. This is pretty cool. This is cool. I think I just made a bunch of cool shapes, and I wanted to put them in a scene, and so I did. Floating, cloud cities. That's badass. Another, like it's not that the landscapes are bad. It's just that I didn't. They don't look big enough. Like this is supposed to be big, and the texture is just not right, and there's not enough haze to give it a sense of scale. And I think that's the main issue here. A cool nebula. I remember they added like volumetric textures in Bryce 4, and this was a volumetric texture. So this is just a sphere with a single nebula texture on it, and it took ages to render this. This is pretty cool. Again, inspired by Mist, some sort of like museum with some display, displaying some artifacts. I think that's what I was going for, if I remember. That's pretty cool. This is cool. I kind of like this one. Sort of strange pyramid thing again. Reflective pipes. Again, I remember this was annoying to render because of all the reflections. It was cool. I think I just liked getting those curves just right, which was tricky in Bryce. You can see the seam here because you can see this line here. This is a seam because you couldn't make a curve like this in Bryce. You had to take a torus and then cut it in half and then add cylinders to the end. But it was very hard to line up the cylinders to be the same size as the torus and not have that gap. And it was very tricky to do. And I didn't quite succeed, but it looked pretty good. That's cool too. Win 2000. Yeah, I had Win 2000. Bootlegged it too. This one's kind of weird. Weird colors here. Some weird, again, playing with the watery textures. This one's cool. I remember this one. I like how the water, I don't know what I did, but I like how the water and the lighting came out here. And this one, when I was just saying about scale, it does have a sense of scale. The thing feels big because there's this haze. That's called aerial perspective, where the haze itself denotes scale because the background is a little bit more hazy than the foreground. So yeah, I kind of like this one. But again, it's just so simple. It's the object. I wish I did more to create more of a story. I just like creating cool shapes and structures and stuff. This as well. The weird spiky things were meshes that I made in Lightwave. I remember I was messing around with Lightwave by NewTek. You guys remember that software? I bootlegged that too because that was really expensive. And I was making these weird shapes and meshes, and I imported some of them to Bryce. In fact, the weird flying saucers in the background, those are also meshes from Lightwave because Bryce couldn't make shapes like that. Another one of these like beacon objects. And getting those lights in the sky, I remember that too. Man, it's weird how it's all coming back to me. I used spotlights combined with like regular lights or something like that, and it made this weird effect where it created these like spikes of light, and I thought that was really cool. Again, the cone thing is a kind of a mesh. The stairs are also a mesh from somewhere else. Bootleg Stonehenge, way too blue. Let's see. Yeah, Soft Image. I remember Soft Image too. Why do I remember that one though? But that name also comes. What the fuck? What was Soft Image? Oh yeah, I don't remember. I remember the name, but I can't remember what the software looked like. And then also Meta Creations, which made Bryce, they came up with a more advanced thing called Carrera, which I used for a little while. Cool little Arctic scene. Another one of these abstract ones. Man, I kind of want to install Bryce and like re-render these things in 4K. I think it would be bitching because these are so small. This one's pretty cool. This one's cool. I remember this one too. This one, again, I like the atmosphere. I feel like when I got the atmosphere right, it was good, you know? But sometimes it was just like too simplistic. And like here, it's something with planets. I add the sun stuff. This is added in Photoshop. I use lens flares to get this eclipse effect going on. No, go away, hot girls. We don't want hot girls in here. Or let me say, it doesn't matter if you're a hot girl. You can be in the chat whether you're hot or not. It doesn't matter. Everybody's hot in the Lucas stream. I'm starting to talk nonsense because it's 4 a.m. and I'm like ready to sleep. Let's just get through these. This is pretty cool. Underwater scene. More abstract stuff. I remember this idea was, the idea behind this is on Venus. And you don't want to be on the surface of Venus because it's too hot, so the city was on stilts. That was my sci-fi concept. Some weird vertical, like shot from above. And we're back at the beginning. So that's it, guys. I think we're done here. We're gonna wrap it up. What else is there? Yeah. Oh, that's it. That's it for today. I'm gonna minimize this and we're gonna stop the stream. So guys, thank you so much for following me for like, I don't know how many, where does it say how long we've been streaming? Like an hour and a half or 2 hours probably. Yeah, exactly. All of us are hot already. That's right. And yeah, Soft Image was like pre-Maya. Yeah, that's what it was. I'm gonna Google it in a second and refresh what it looked like. I don't remember Hexagon. Yeah, they don't even have a link. All right, guys. So on that note, that's the end of the stream.